And we're live. Good morning, everyone. I got my cup of coffee. Aloha Snack
Good,
Bar from Northern California.
good afternoon from England.
He's over there
No,
across the pond.
across the pond. No coffee for me.
No coffee, man. Yeah, you gotta
Just
do the
aqua.
coffee. You gotta get jacked before the podcast.
That's it, man. I'm already jacked. Already jacked.
He's jacked from life.
Jacked from life.
All right. So today we thought we'd talk about development, like kind of what it means, how it works, what the process looks like, all those kind of good things, sort of more esoteric, like what it means at a certain a deep level. And we thought it'd be good to kind of share our thoughts with that with you guys. First things first, I want to say that development. I think I've said this before. I've probably said this numerous times actually in videos, but it's not what people think it is, and that it's not a quick thing. Many people think they're going to go to South America and do ayahuasca one time and have an incredible spiritual experience. And I'm not going to deny that you can have incredible spiritual experiences doing stuff like that, but that's not as the same as the slow road of development. Okay. I've done mushrooms before, and it doesn't compare to the things I've experienced on development. You know what I mean? They were enlightening experiences. I don't regret doing those things, but to say that it's the same as the long path is, it's just not true. And many people are fooled, I think, into thinking that it's a quick process. And then they do those sorts of things, and they end up just kind of poisoning their bodies more, and it makes it harder to develop because they think they've already achieved what they should achieve. You know what I mean? But no, development is a very long and slow process. It's a lifelong process, and to truly develop yourself, it takes lots of work, and it takes a long time. It takes a long time. You know what I mean?
Probably a good idea to explain what development actually is.
Development, in the way we use it, is just a slow healing of the mind, body, and spirit. If you can scientifically make the body healthier and healthier, that's what we would say is development for the most part. Part of it is a process of just bringing in more etheric energy. Okay, it's a process of getting rid of old infections. Okay, so you're detoxing your body of old metals. Okay, that are inside your body. It's the process of getting rid of old infections, old traumas, false beliefs. Okay, and one thing that's, I think, so powerful about nutritional balancing, and I think I've said this before, is that nutritional balancing using the hair mineral analysis is actually the first time that I know of, maybe in human history, where it's so easy to scientifically and mathematically direct the human being towards greater development. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I think it's an interesting concept, isn't it? Because I think development is like, well, it's natural, isn't it, I suppose? And I think when people hear the word development in nutrition balancing or anywhere, they think it's some sort of, some sort of fabricated thing that humans have kind of come up with themselves. But in reality, it's just a natural process of a human being to be at its full potential. Now, the issue, I mean, development to me, or it has done, and I think development to a lot of people, to me, it's been a little bit scary because we're not surrounded by anyone really in 21st century we can class as being developed. Do you understand what I mean? But I think if we was living a more natural life, the whole idea of we would be surrounded by many developed people, and we kind of, in a way, we kind of walking into the dark, and I think nutritional balancing is a little bit like the light at the end of the tunnel. Respects, we as humans today, we're so sick and toxic that no one really understands what development is. So I think,
right.
Development at the end of the day is a human's highest potential. Now, let's just say that we were in an idealistic world where all our needs was catered for, similar to what a nutritional balancing program does, in the correct food and diet and fresh air and posture and you know, even the way we think and communicate, and you know, in the symbiosis with our community, etc., that would have been naturally taken care of. But the process of time and maturity would develop a person over time in this natural environment. But because we're so sick and because we're so toxic, we have this extra section involved at the moment, which is, you know, getting ourselves back to this kind of normal and natural state that we should all be at. And I think then, if you do the right things, especially things like meditation and the pushing down exercise and certain ways of being in terms of your moral values and stuff, that would naturally develop you. And people talk about it a lot in, you know, like rites of passages and stuff. It's all about to do with development, becoming a better person. So I think it's a weird concept, isn't it, really, for people in the 21st century, because we're just not surrounded by so-called developed people. I know when I went to Thailand to work with a practitioner in Thailand, Robert, he was like, I think he was quite an old gentleman. I think he was around 60, early 60s. And he'd been looking after his body many years. He hadn't been on the nutritional balancing program for a long time, but you could tell that he had developed himself in other ways. And it was probably the first time ever in my life that I actually was in close vicinity to someone who was at a reasonable stage of development after so many years. And his energy levels was, you know, unbelievable. His energy levels. It was like a steam train just plowing through everything, but in a good way. So I think if you were surrounded by people like that, much of the time, you would realize how sick you actually were, and you would realize the potential of us as humans, and the potential of our development. So,
Right.
yeah, I think. Go on.
Oh, no, go ahead.
No, I just wanted to kind of stress that development. I just wanted to stress that it's natural. You know, it's totally natural. It's what nature intended. We shouldn't really be striving for it too much. I mean, there is definitely a narrow path, but you know, the natural world does actually provide us with many of the things that we need to develop, but we've just come too far away from it. So, you know, it's a little bit scary at times, because, you know, removing the toxins and the metals and the chemicals is, it brings up a lot of different things, and it makes you feel pretty bad at times, and makes you become aware of things that you've never become aware of before. But one thing that helps me is just knowing that this is a natural process in reality, and just to kind of see it as that process, and that kind of, you know, separates you from your own insecurities about things.
Right, totally. And people, I mean, development is, you're able to develop yourself far beyond what many people think that you're actually able to. You know what I mean? I mean, the eventual goal is that you can become, you know, more like Jesus, or more like Buddha, or all the masters. Like, the end goal is mastery. You know what I mean? And so human beings are actually capable of much more than people realize. You know, even though it takes a lot of work and it takes a very long time, all human beings are capable of, you know, sort of really powerful intuition, and almost like, you know, telepathy with other human beings, and being very empathetic, and you know, incredible things. But it's a long, slow road. And, you know, but I want to emphasize that even though it's a long, slow road and it's somewhat difficult, it's open to everyone today, and it's very easy today. It's easier than it's ever been, especially in the Western world, where we have more free time on our hands than we've ever have. And many people just waste their time, their free time. You know, they said they watch Netflix for 6 hours straight. You know what I mean? And instead, you can choose, you know, a certain path to develop yourself. And it's with the free time we have today, it's much easier than it's ever been. The bodies are toxic and they need to be remineralized and all these things, but that's really the main hindrance. And if you do these things, it almost naturally happens today. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I suppose it's a process from materialistic, from the material world to the spiritual realm. I think that's the transition. Is you come into this world and it's very physical and material, but in reality, the soul is eternal and it's non-physical in many ways. And just like Buddha's transformation, just like Jesus's transformation, just like all the great masters, they transcended the whole physical material realm. And I think that's what nutritional balancing does. You know, that's way in the future, but kind of in between that, you know, if you are transcending the physical realm where disease and kind of negative physical things are no longer real, what you get is a much quicker rejuvenation of the body, much more improved immune system in physical terms, and that's basically like you're basically you know, sending the physical body into like the garage to be totally reconfigured and built into a vehicle that you can house the soul, and this vehicle can then transcend its physical kind of the physical aspects of the world and to become kind of, I suppose it's, you know, you can become immortal. There's a lot of Buddhist monks, Tibetan monks who understand development very well, and Dr. Wilson talks a little bit about, you know, Tibetan development and stuff. And these kind of masters that have transcended the whole physical realm, they say if they were to, they could live in the physical realm forever, but there comes a time where they get asked to leave or to move on, you know, and it's their decision. Developed masters, what they will say to their students, you know, it's time for me to leave, and they will literally go to sleep and move on.
Right. Yeah, and the soul just goes on. You know, the soul doesn't die. You know, it just goes on and on. You know.
Yeah, it just keeps moving from body to body. But yeah, I mean, in the meantime, you know, development is a byproduct, I suppose, isn't it? Would you call it a byproduct of just following the program?
Right. Right.
That's the beauty of it. You know, it doesn't just heal you. Like maybe you could find other nutrition programs or other lifestyle programs that will kind of heal the physical body pretty well, but the hallmark of nutritional balancing is it not only heals the body, but it also allows the body to develop, or you could also say evolve, you know, evolve into this highly capable human being
Right.
that I suppose the human being was designed to do. I suppose that's what God actually designed the human body to do this. And I think it's all part of the universal curriculum.
Right.
That, you know, every soul, one way or another, will experience or will get to a point where they have gone through. But it just depends when you will actually take the class. You know, and I think this is an opportunity for people to take the class right now.
Right. I mean, it's kind of like this. So, like in the big picture, the soul development is a soul aspect, and the soul goes through development through millions of years, basically. Okay, the soul inhabits a body for a while. The body dies. The soul learns some lessons. It goes back. It goes back through a planning stage. It enters through another body. Okay, it learns some more lessons. The body passes away. Then the soul goes back to the planning stage after it learns some lessons, and on and on and on. And then the soul is slowly going through development and going through stages of development. What development looks like here on Earth is using nutritional balancing as a way to extend the life of the body so that the soul can be around longer and live in a healthier body so it can develop faster. So instead of having to go through all these stages, the soul can learn more and learn many more lessons through one lifetime, and it can advance through the stages that it would typically take millennia much quicker, because it can inhabit a developed, advanced body longer here on Earth. That's all it is. Does that make sense?
And I think a lot of it's to do with following the program. I don't think it's just about following the nutritional balancing program. You also have to learn about many in the Bible, for example. You know, it's not just about following a program. You have to learn how to be integral, how to be honest. You know, about not lying, not cheating yourself and other people. And I think that's how Christians develop, is by following these principles in the Bible. I think there's many different ways of developing. A lot of people use meditation to develop, and they have certain rules of living. You know, in the Christian, it's more about salvation, I think, and, you know, following certain values to become more of a developed person. But what the nutritional balancing program does is it kind of brings up all these problems that you have, you know, these unpolished aspects of the ego, and it allows you to be put into situations more powerfully that are going to break down these unpolished aspects, and in order for you to learn more about yourself and stuff. So it's you are constantly being given certain tasks and challenges in order to overcome certain things, because we only live for, well, I suppose this contradicts what I was saying before, but, you know, we only have a certain amount of time in reality. You know, there's only a certain amount of time, I suppose, to really, you know, there's a lot to learn in a short amount of time. You know, so the nutritional balancing program is like the rocket boosters in order for you to learn quick. So it's not really, although it makes you feel better, there's always challenges involved, and I think people need to be aware of that as well. All these challenges.
Yeah, and yeah, development never stops. You never achieve the ultimate goal. There is no ultimate goal. It's just the path, and either you're on the path and you can accelerate your progress on the path, or you can get off the path whenever you want. You know what I mean? But the path there's no end to the path. Even at very, very high stages, even once you become Jesus-like, you can go beyond that.
Yeah, I mean, I suppose, you know, if you think about God, how developed must he be, in order to have created,
right?
You know, just get up to the master level.
Right.
It's all kind of different stages in the program. That's
You there? I lost you for a minute.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, you're cutting in and out a little bit.
How's that?
There, I think you're back. You there?
Hello? Can you hear me?
Yeah, you're cutting in and out a little bit. It's fine. But yeah, going back and talking about how, you know, development never really stops, which is an interesting sort of, you know, it's an interesting sort of paradigm that you can just keep going, and you can achieve much more than, you know, human beings are capable of, much more than you may or may not realize, you know, here on planet Earth. You know, and it's a great way to be of service, you know. Being developed is a way to be of better service. Not only do you have more energy to fix problems here on Earth and be of service to others. But when you're more developed, you naturally have a more healing energy that helps others automatically as well.
Have you ever got to a stage on the program where you felt chakras, for example?
Yeah.
I think that was that.
What's that?
I just think that were an interesting point for me, because in the beginning I wasn't even aware of development, to be honest. I was just focused on my health, so I was only reading the health articles. I didn't really have any energy to read anything else. You know what I mean? So I wasn't aware of it. And then all of a sudden, maybe 2 years onto the program, I started feeling chakras spinning. I mean, I always felt the energy, ether energy, but all of a sudden my chakras opened. Well, I wouldn't say my chakras opened, but I started feeling, you know, the spinning effect of chakras. And I think that's an interesting step, because I wasn't aware of, you know, I wasn't talking myself into feeling these things. They just came just by following the program.
Right.
I don't know about you, but I've also had telepathic experiences, guidance, making things happen from a distance, and just by following the program, this has started to happen, like, you know. So it's interesting how the DNA or something kind of changes in the brain or the body, where you just naturally start to have these certain abilities.
Right. Yeah, I think we've talked about this in previous videos, some of our, you know, experiences. You know, feeling my heart chakra open up, my throat chakra, you know, having other certain experiences like in dreams and stuff like that. Yeah, and you feel more guided in your life. I feel like you're just able, it increases discernment a lot. So you're just able to discern, should I go this path? Should I go this path? Should I do this career? Should I be with this person? Is this right for me? Is this wrong for me? Am I assessing the situation correctly? Am I thinking clearly about the situation? You know, it makes life a lot easier in a lot of ways, because you're more able to discern, you know, where should I invest my money? Should I be spending time doing this? You know, it makes life, discernment through the life path definitely a lot easier. You know what I mean?
Definitely. I think that comes naturally anyway, just from having a kind of better functioning brain. And, you know, definitely doing the pushing down exercise helps you to discern what's right and wrong. You know, you get to a stage where you become a witness to your own thoughts, and you become a witness to everyone else's thoughts, and you start really you start seeing conversations in a completely different way, because you're not having a conversation with someone just through automated responses that you've picked up throughout your, you know, childhood or whatever. You're actually so aware of the words coming out of your mouth and the words coming out of other people's mouths, that you can't really hide from any manipulative things, because you can you can basically see what the other person's saying just by being present in the situation. It's quite surreal.
Yeah, it's very interesting being able to scan people. Like I can see people's imbalances in a way that most people can't. Like I can see their mineral imbalances. It's very interesting. And so it's good for discernment, like I was talking about. I mean, you can see, if you can read someone's energy, it's much easier to see, like, should I hire this person? Should I be with this person? Should I have this person around? You know, like if I was to hire someone, it's like this guy I do real estate with. Like before I ever partnered with him doing real estate, it was never, is he qualified to do? I just like scanned him, and then I'm like, oh, like this is a good man. He's grounded, Christian, hardworking man. Like I can just tell by scanning him. There's no need to probe any farther than that. And then you're gonna realize it's like when you have people in your lives, or when you hire them for business, or you find a partner, it's much better. You're better off not looking at like their accolades or things they've accomplished. It's much more important who they are is much more important than what they do. Does that make sense? You're better off betting on the jockey than the horse. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's much easier to see someone's heart rather than someone's head, like most people see. A lot of people today just don't see people's heart. They don't live from the heart.
Yeah, like literally, like if I had two people that I wanted to hire, I would just like, and I sat them and I interviewed each of them. Like literally, like for the most part, their college degrees and stuff like that would barely even matter to me.
Exactly.
I'm just literally just scanning them and seeing like who, you know what I mean, is better.
Yeah.
And it's a much better way, and that's the way that society will be much more presented in the future. I think much more in the future as human society progresses, the hierarchy which will be much more determined by the level of spiritual development of the person than their technical accolades. Does that make sense?
And it's about moving the energy downwards. It's about making the body and mind more yang. It's so important that I was at a talk maybe 3 weeks back, and it was a talk about living from the heart, and they went through the ages, they went through history and kind of talked about how in the beginning of history most people lived from the heart, and certain ways of relating they just didn't understand it because it was a yin way of relating to people. They just didn't, some of the things that we talk about and how we relate, they just didn't even understand it. It was like a, you know what I mean, it's like a fish and a dog. They're just completely different.
It's also the hierarchy of needs. Like if you live back 500 years ago, you're much more concerned with survival. You don't have time to think of other people's feelings because you're just working 16 hours a day so you don't die. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I suppose so. It depends how far back you go, I think. I mean, maybe if you go back thousands of years, yeah, there's a big survival aspect. But I think when we started cooking our food, for example, and we were getting much more minerals and much more carbohydrates, and our brains were getting bigger and stuff, I think like communities of 40, 50 people, you know, I think survival, we had a lot of empathy, much more empathy. I think we have empathy now, but I think we're losing it a little bit because we're getting too yin. I think back then when the days were slower, you know.
Oh, right.
Do you understand what I mean? The days were slower, there was less stress, and you know, if you read certain books now, if you read, there's a lot of books that I read when it's going really, really back, and these people, they say in the books that their head were open to receive the energy of God, and they used to say to each other when they used to go out on hunts or they go out on missions, you know, they used to say, you know, keep your head open, live from the heart, etc., etc. So this was a big thing. The mind wasn't even, it was just irrelevant. It was just a thing that's used to, you know, maybe calculate or be creative, but for the most part, most people live from the heart. And even on hair tests, you know, if you see certain patterns, like a step down pattern, for example, you know that person's starting to live from down here rather than up here, you know. And that's another amazing aspect of the hair mineral analysis. It's like, you know, the minerals also have a certain spirit to them, and you know, when the minerals are gathered in a certain way, you can really tell how the organism as a whole is focusing its energy. It's cool.
Right. And that's what many people don't actually understand. And that's the most deepest esoteric part of the hair test. You guys, you have to understand that at the deepest level, all the hair test actually is a snapshot of where you are in your path towards greater development. And it's telling you how to adjust parameters in order to get you moving in the right direction. That's actually, there's ratios and there's minerals and all this, but at the deepest level, all it is a snapshot of where you are in your development and how to move forward. That's all it is, actually, at the deepest level, which is very, very interesting and more esoteric than people give it credit for.
Yeah, it's difficult because as soon as you say to someone, I'll say to many of my friends, oh, you need to get a hair test. And when the words hair test come out my mouth, I know that it goes into their head and they're just thinking, oh, it's just some generic crappy test. You know, who tests the hair? It's just so unscientific, etc., etc., etc. But sometimes you just wish you could plant a little bit of like a microchip inside the brain, the potential of the test.
Right. And going back, I
rephrase
think
it a little bit different.
I see this happening more in mainstream culture now too. What you're going back, how, you know, your mind, you're not your mind. You have to live more in the heart. And I see this happening more in mainstream culture. Like, I was watching an interview with Tony Robbins, and Tony Robbins was actually talking about this. He was saying how you have to realize, like, you're not your mind. Like, and so I think it's coming more prevalent, and like, I think meditation is becoming more prevalent in our society. And I think, you know, a lot of these sort of principles, and people are realizing you're not your mind. Your mind is a tool. You're a soul, and you want to live as a soul, but your mind, you're not your mind. Your brain is a really good calculator, and it's able to calculate things very efficiently. But that's all your brain is. You're not your brain. And so they get obsessed with that, like in Western, like, secular science, where it's like, oh, we're like, you're your brain, and we're this way because we have giant brains, but we're not that way because we have giant brains. I mean, we are to an extent, but in reality, we're living as a soul, and then the mind is a tool. And the mind's a tool that you can sharpen and learn to control. Most people are at their mind controls them. So they have to follow the whim of the mind, and the mind is like a wild animal. You know what I mean? And it leads them astray. Your mind will lead you astray over and over and over again until you learn the lesson. And until you learn that you will be led astray by your mind and you learn to control it, then, you know, you won't be able to progress. And you have to realize that the mind is just a tool of the heart and soul. And you can just use it that's saying don't use your mind. You need your mind. Your mind is very powerful, and you need to learn how to sharpen it and use it correctly. But letting it control you is not how you actually use it correctly. Using it correctly is using it as a tool and understanding when and how to use it effectively.
Yeah, I suppose the mind is just a tool to create in the physical realm. That's all it is. It's used to create stuff.
Right.
You know, and that the creation that you make is there. It learns you certain lessons, but you know how much the mind is just a wild animal. As soon as you start doing meditation, the amount of rubbish it will throw in front of your face. You know, I don't know about you, Luke, but there's been many times where I laugh at some of the crap that's just being regurgitated from my mind constantly. Right. You know, it's just humorous. And, you know, once you start to make that separation from like soul awareness, and you start seeing the mind in its daily routines, if you can stay in that awareness and you see how you manipulate people and how you say certain things for your own ego, how you do certain things in order to get you out of situations, or how you will say certain things to subtly put a person down for your own insecurities. It's like, it's just not you. Do you know what I mean? But people think that it is them. And a lot of it's just because it's just like a computer hard disk. You know, whatever you put into it, it believes that's what it is. You know, it's exactly the same as a computer. It's just whatever you give it, that's what it thinks it is, and it just runs a code that the environment built a code in its mind. But in reality, you're like you're the baseline operating system that's kind of all powerful. You know, so you've got the opportunity to change the program and change the code into something that's going to be meaningful and something that's going to be worthwhile, that's better for the greater community.
Right. Okay.
So, has anyone said a question?
Let me check here. Do we got?
We haven't put out an email or anything, so probably not.
Probably not. Let's see here. View channel.
If anyone's watching, send any questions in if you're interested in getting them answered.
Can you go look at the? How do I see?
No, because I'm on a mobile today. I'm not on a computer. So if you go to the Creator Studio on YouTube, and then you should click, if you click the live events where you created this event, it should be there, the event. Click on it.
Yeah, we're gonna see if we have any questions here. Okay, I got you. 3 watching. All right. Yeah, we're gonna see if we have any questions. No questions. But
Cool.
maybe we'll wrap it up here. That we're towards the end. But I hope you guys find, you know, a lot of the things that we talked about, you know, helpful on your path and helpful, you know, with your life in general. And realize that, you know, it's a long, slow process. Okay, it doesn't always feel good. And actually, a very important aspect that I've encountered in my own life several times that people don't often talk about, I feel like, is that when you go through development and you begin to radiate a more developed energy, it doesn't feel good to everyone. And actually, some people hold it against you and they don't want to be around you because it brings up their own issues. I've encountered this several times, and you have to be okay with people not being losing friends and family just because they don't want to be around you. Because if you have a healing energy and you're around people and then you bring them up to that level, that's a form of retracing for them. Okay, and then just by you being around them and moving energy downwards consistently, it brings up their own issues that they have tucked away, and that doesn't feel very good with them. They don't expect it, and then they naturally want to get away from you, and that happens. Okay, so something you need to be prepared for. And relationships with the opposite sex, with your close friends, many people, I've experienced friends and family holding it against me if I like don't want to drink with them or do drugs and things like that, because it literally makes them see the imbalances, and it makes them see the problems in themselves, and it doesn't feel good, and then they don't like it, and then in return they don't want to be around you, and they hold it against you. And so you have to be aware of that, and you have to be okay with it. Sometimes you have to say goodbye to those people. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
But I think it's something that sometimes doesn't get talked about, but it happens.
Yeah, no, I've noticed that as well. Just being totally grounded and centered, people living a life with this constant anxiety. So as soon as they come into contact with someone that's quite concrete in their being, they don't like the steadiness. It kind of brings up their own anxiety even more. So it's an interesting concept. But I suppose if people want to, because the word development means so many different things to so many different people, the best thing to do is just to go onto Dr. Wilson's website and just work your way through his development section on the website. That's just the best thing to do if you want to learn more about it. Just take your time, obviously, you know, think long term, and just work your way through them articles, and you know, maybe you need to reread them a few times, but that will give you a much better understanding about what it actually is.
Yeah, and ask yourself what you want out of life, and if that's something that you want for yourself.
Yeah, adventure. If you like adventures, it's the biggest you could possibly. You know, if you see it like an adventure, things get much easier. You know, it's just an adventure. You need to have a bit of an adventurous mindset in order to really get deep into it. You know, a bit of a warrior type of mindset, in that kind of pushing forward all the time and into the unknown. It's, you know, so yeah, anyone that says that it's boring or anything like that, it's not boring at all. It's the most, you know, adventurous thing you could possibly do. So
the great adventure. All right, well, that about wraps it up. If you guys have any questions, you can feel free to comment below, and we'll try to answer them during the next podcast if you guys want. And then also let us know what you want us to talk about. It'd be helpful. Let us know if you want me to make any videos. You know, I made a recent video about Ethereum. Let me know if you guys like that. let us know sort of what kind of podcast, what kind of guests we can have on. We're in communication with more type of guests, so let us know you know, what guests we can have on, what kind of things you want to see from the channel, and we'll talk to you guys later.
All right, bye.
Bye, guys.